What's up, Madrid?
Before the fame, before the muscles, before The Rock became a global symbol of strength, there was a moment that almost destroyed Dwayne Johnson. It happened in silence. No crowds, no cameras. Just a dim parking lot outside a small apartment in Florida. He was 17. His family had just been evicted. And he watched his mother cry as the landlord changed the lock, sealing their home shut forever. Everything they owned was now behind a closed door they could never open again. That night, Dwayne felt something break inside him. Not anger, not fear, but a heavy, suffocating emptiness. 2 years later, another blow came. His dream of becoming a professional football player shattered in an instant. Cut from the Canadian Football League after just 2 months, he walked out of the facility with a garbage bag holding his gear, and only $7 in his pocket. No plan, no direction, nothing but the echo of a future collapsing. He later said, "I didn't want to do anything. I was crying constantly." It was the lowest point of his life, the moment he realized that strength wasn't something he had. It was something he would have to build from the rubble. The world sees Dwayne Johnson as an unstoppable force. The smile, the strength, the legend. But few know there was a night when he stood alone outside a locked door, with no home, no money, and a darkness swallowing him from the inside. People call him lucky, as if greatness simply chose him. But luck never came. Only pain did, brutal, relentless, shaping every scar he hides. And this is the story of how a broken boy with $7 clawed his way out of the shadows, to become one of the most powerful figures on the planet. Dwayne Douglas Johnson was born into a family of wrestlers, but not a family of stability. His father, Rocky Johnson, was a star in the ring, traveling constantly, living from show to show. His mother, Ada, carried the emotional weight of a life that never stayed in one place long enough to feel safe. From the outside, wrestling looked glamorous. But behind the curtain, the Johnson family lived with financial chaos. Months of unpaid rent, broken promises, and long stretches of uncertainty. As a child, Dwayne moved from state to state, city to city, school to school. Every time he unpacked his small bag, they would pack again days later. He learned early that nothing was permanent. Friends, homes, routines, safety. And in the blur of all that moving, something else started forming inside him. A quiet loneliness, the kind that grows when a kid never knows how long he's allowed to stay. But some memories cut deeper than others. He remembers the nights when money ran out and arguments filled the house. He remembers watching his parents push through fear with forced smiles. And he remembers the day everything cracked. The day his mother tried to step into oncoming traffic after years of emotional exhaustion. Dwayne, just a teenager, grabbed her and pulled her back as cars rushed by. He didn't understand it fully then, but that moment carved a wound so deep that it would echo throughout his entire adulthood, manifesting later as depression, self-doubt, and a relentless need to protect the people he loved. At school, he was often the outsider, the new kid, the big kid, the kid who had nothing but size. Teachers assumed he was trouble. Other students challenged him, avoided him, or feared him. He was suspended multiple times, not because he was violent, but because life had taught him to react before he was hurt. He wrote years later, "I was getting arrested a lot. I had no idea who I was. There was no stability, no foundation. Only fragments of a childhood he tried to piece together through strength, literal strength, lifting weights in small, sweaty gyms wherever the family happened to land that month. But even in the chaos, there were glimpses of hope. His father's discipline, his grandfather's legacy. Moments around dinner tables where the family had nothing, yet still found a way to laugh. Dwayne held onto those small sparks the way other kids held onto toys or photos. They became the seeds of resilience. Tiny, fragile, but unbreakable. Yet the truth is this. Before he became a symbol of power, he was a boy shaped by instability, financial ruin, and emotional trauma he never asked for. A boy learning to survive a world that never stayed still long enough to love him back. And that stormy childhood became the foundation of everything he would face next. Every failure, every loss, every moment life tried to break him. Because you can't understand the legend unless you understand the boy who had to grow up in the dark. For a brief moment, It seemed like life was finally giving Dwayne Johnson a way out. Football, a field of order and structure in a childhood full of chaos. The weight room became his sanctuary, the only place where pain made sense, where effort produced results, where he didn't feel like a kid drifting through a world he couldn't control. Coaches noticed him early. A raw force. A teenager with a body built from anger, instability, and the need to protect what little he had. He earned a scholarship to the University of Miami. A dream for thousands of young athletes. For the first time, Dwayne felt something he hadn't felt in years. Direction. But dreams built on fragile ground crack easily. In Miami, he wasn't the strongest anymore. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the star. He was surrounded by giants. Young men who had grown up with stability, structure, and confidence. And under the blinding lights of the Hurricanes program, Dwayne began to feel small again. Then came the injuries. First, small strains. Then deeper tears. One after another, each one robbing him of the momentum he needed to stand out. He tried to push through the pain, but the harder he pushed, the more his body broke under the pressure of expectations he couldn't meet. He watched others rise. He watched his starting position slip away. He watched the life he was building start to collapse the way everything in his childhood once had. By the time he graduated, the NFL didn't want him. Not even a tryout. So he turned to the Canadian Football League, a lifeline, a second chance, a thin thread of hope. It snapped fast. 2 months. That's all it took. 2 months before they called him in, told him he wasn't needed, and handed him a garbage bag with his belongings. A garbage bag, as if his dream were trash to be discarded quietly. He walked out of the building under gray skies, the kind that make the world feel heavier than it is. He checked his pockets. $7. That's all he had left after years of grinding, fighting, clawing for a future that seemed to disappear in front of him. No job, no team, no home to go back to. Just a long flight to Florida, where his parents didn't even know how badly he had failed. He later said, "That was my absolute worst time. I didn't know who I was anymore." It wasn't just the loss of a career. It was the loss of identity. The collapse of the one thing he thought would save him from the instability of his past. He returned home a quieter man. A broken man. A man staring at the ceiling each night, wondering if this was all life had for him. But sometimes, rock bottom isn't the end. Sometimes it's the place where a new version of you begins to form. And for Dwayne Johnson, that place, the darkness, the confusion, the $7 truth, would soon push him toward a world he once tried to avoid. The wrestling ring. Wrestling wasn't Dwayne's first choice. It wasn't even his dream. It was the one thing he had promised himself he would never do. Follow in the footsteps of a father whose career brought fame, but also pain, instability, and a home that was always one rent payment away from disaster. But when life leaves you with $7, pride becomes a luxury you can't afford. His father trained him the only way he knew. Brutally. No shortcuts, no softness. Every throw hurt. Every fall was a reminder that the world owed him nothing. But in that suffering, something awakened in Dwayne, a sense of purpose rising from the ashes of a broken dream. He debuted as Rocky Maivia, smiling, clean-cut, a corporate creation. And the fans hated him. They booed him, chanted, "Die, Rocky, die." Rejected him with a cruelty that cut deeper than anything football had ever done to him. For a moment, he felt history repeating itself. The instability, the rejection, the sense that nothing he did was ever enough. But instead of breaking, he did something unexpected. He stopped trying to be what people wanted. He found his own voice. And from that fire, The Rock was born. Sarcastic, sharp-tongued, explosive charisma, a character larger than the arena, yet rooted in very real pain. Crowds didn't just cheer him, they roared for him. Every eyebrow raise, every insult, every booming "if you smealio" carried the weight of a man who had finally taken control of his identity. Within a few short years, The Rock wasn't just a wrestler. He was the most electrifying figure in all of sports entertainment. Merchandise, main events, millions chanting his name. He lifted arenas the way few human beings ever could. But the ring was only the beginning. Hollywood came calling, First softly, then louder, then relentlessly. Producers loved his size, his humor, his discipline. What they didn't see at first, but soon discovered, was his work ethic. He arrived earlier, stayed longer, did more takes, learned faster, listened more. He was the first one in, last one out. The same kid who once watched dreams collapse in a CFL hallway now refused to let any door close on him again. Role after role, he carved a new identity. Action star, comedian, family hero, global powerhouse. One of the highest paid actors on the planet. Luxury homes, blockbusters, private jets, billboards across continents. Every measure of success the world could offer, he achieved. And for a while, it looked like nothing could touch him. But under that mountain of accomplishments, something fragile still lived. The boy who had once been homeless, the young man who had once been broken, the adult who had never fully healed. The world saw the invincible smile, the muscles carved like granite, the charm that lit up entire arenas. But they didn't see the exhaustion behind the scenes. The pressure to stay perfect. The fear of slowing down. The hidden anxiety that the life he built could crumble like the ones he grew up in. Because even at the top of the world, shadows follow. And the higher he climbed, WWE legend, Hollywood titan, global icon, the darker those shadows grew, silently waiting at the edges of his perfect image. The world knew The Rock, but they still didn't know Dwayne Johnson. Not the man behind the spotlight. Not the pain he carried. Not the storms he fought long after the audience went home. And soon those storms would return. Louder, heavier, and more personal than ever. For most people, success erases the past. But for Dwayne Johnson, the past never stayed gone. It followed him, quietly, patiently, through locker rooms, movie sets, hotel corridors, and sleepless nights in penthouse suites. It waited for moments of weakness. And when fame reached its peak, the darkness finally caught up. At the height of WWE mania, people saw a superstar who could fill arenas with nothing but a raised eyebrow. But off-stage, the cost was brutal. His schedule was a machine. Travel, shows, interviews, media, airports, arena lights, more media, more lights. Nights blurred into mornings, and mornings blurred into numbness. He pushed through it, because that's what he'd been trained to do his whole life. But pushing has a limit. The cracks began in his personal life. Being The Rock demanded everything. Charisma on cue, perfect timing, superhuman energy. Being Dwayne demanded everything else. Presence, vulnerability, connection. He didn't have enough for both. His marriage began to dissolve slowly, silently, the way tectonic plates shift before an earthquake. He spent months living like a ghost, on the road, on planes, in hotel rooms where he stared at ceilings that all looked the same. Success amplified, but intimacy faded. Arguments became walls. Walls became distance. Distance became divorce. It broke him more than he ever admitted publicly. And depression, the same shadow that had swallowed him as a teenager, returned without warning. He would later say, "I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to do anything." A man worshipped for strength found himself unable to get out of bed. Even during blockbuster shoots, he carried that heaviness. He would walk onto set smiling, joking, lifting spirits, then return to his trailer, shut the door, and collapse into silence. Loneliness hits differently when the world calls you a hero. The pressure to stay The Rock, invincible, unbreakable, perfect, became its own cage. He wasn't allowed to be tired. He wasn't allowed to fail. He wasn't allowed to break. So he broke in private. Some nights he drove without direction, just to feel something other than the weight sitting on his chest. Some nights he slept on the couch because the bed felt too big, too empty, too loud with memories. Some nights he trained until his body screamed, not out of discipline, but desperation. People saw the muscles, the movies, the success. What they didn't see were the moments when he sat on staircases with his head in his hands, fighting a sadness he couldn't explain. They didn't see the guilt he carried. Guilt for failing in his marriage, guilt for not being emotionally present, guilt for being strong on screen, broken off screen. The media never reported the true extent of it. Fans didn't know. Studios didn't know. He hid it with jokes, charm, and his signature grin. But inside, he was drowning. And his internal monologue turned darker. What if I'm not who people think I am? What if I'm not enough? What if losing everything is just a matter of time? Perfection is a burden that slowly destroys even the strongest men. And Dwayne Johnson, the man who built his identity on resilience, found himself fighting a quiet, relentless war against his own mind. A war no spotlight could illuminate. A war no audience could save him from. A war he had already lost once as a young man, and was terrified of losing again. But this was only the first half of the storm, because the deepest wounds, the ones that would reshape him forever, were still waiting. Depression doesn't announce itself. It comes quietly, in the pauses between breaths, in the silence after applause, in the moments when the world believes you are at your strongest. For Dwayne Johnson, it returned with a force he hadn't felt since he was 17. And this time, he didn't see it coming. It started with small things. Nights where he couldn't sleep, even after exhausting himself in the gym. Mornings where getting out of bed felt like dragging his body through wet cement. Days where hundreds of messages went unanswered because he didn't have the energy to pretend he was okay. Then came the moment he described as breaking without realizing I was breaking. He was filming a major production, a set filled with laughter, stunt rehearsals, bright lights, and entire crews depending on him. But behind the scenes, he began to disappear inside himself. He would sit alone in his trailer, staring at the wall for hours. Not thinking, not crying, not feeling. Just empty. He later admitted, "I couldn't do a thing. I was overwhelmed. I was crying constantly." This was not exhaustion. It was collapse. His body was functioning, but his spirit was bleeding, quietly, invisibly. He tried to outrun it the only way he knew, with work. More movies. More commitments. More weight on his shoulders, hoping the pressure would silence the darkness. Instead, it made everything worse. He began carrying guilt, heavy, corrosive guilt, for not being the man everyone believed he was. The unbreakable icon. The symbol of strength. The man who climbed out of poverty and turned pain into power. What happens when the symbol can't live up to the myth? He felt like a fraud, a titan with cracked foundations, a superhero costume sewn over old wounds that refused to heal. One night, after a grueling shoot, he drove aimlessly through Los Angeles. The city lights blurred through the windshield, his thoughts spiraling. He didn't know where he was going. He just needed to escape the pressure of being The Rock. Somewhere along a quiet road, he pulled over, turned off the engine, and let the silence swallow him. For the first time in years, he considered giving up. Not on life, but on everything he had built. The career, the image, the relentless persona of strength. He realized he had become a stranger to himself, living a version of Dwayne Johnson that the world demanded, not the man he truly was. And then came the memory that cracked something open inside him. His mother stepping onto a busy highway decades earlier. The look in her eyes. The pain she carried. The pain he now felt. It was in that moment, raw, shaking, and alone, that he understood the truth he would later share with the world. I realized I wasn't alone in this. And that's what saved me. Acknowledging the darkness didn't weaken him. It freed him. In the weeks that followed, he reached out for help. Therapy. Honest conversations. Setting boundaries. Letting go of the shame around depression. A shame he'd carried since childhood. Slowly, the fog began to lift. But the transformation didn't come from the spotlight, the gym, or the movies. It came from something deeper. Accepting that even the strongest people break. And that the real strength is learning how to rebuild. Not in public, but in the quiet corners of your life where no applause can reach. This was the darkness that remade him. This was the pain that would eventually drive him toward a new chapter. One built not on perfection, but on truth. And from that truth, a different version of Dwayne Johnson would rise. A version the world had never seen before. Rock bottom doesn't come with a warning. It arrives quietly, settles deeply, and forces you to look at the parts of yourself you've spent a lifetime avoiding. For Dwayne Johnson, that quiet night in the parked car, engine off, city lights fading, memories crashing over him, became the turning point he never expected, yet desperately needed. He realized something that frightened him. He had built an empire, but not a foundation. He knew how to rise. He didn't know how to heal. The first step wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a speech, a comeback announcement, or a heroic gym montage. It was simply telling the truth to himself. He admitted he was struggling. He admitted he wasn't okay. He admitted that despite the fame, the success, the global admiration, he was still the same boy who once stood outside a locked apartment door, powerless and hurting. And from that honesty, something shifted. He reached out for help, real help. Therapists, conversations that cut deep, moments of vulnerability with the few people he trusted. He confronted the trauma he spent years burying under charisma and muscle. Then he rebuilt, quietly, deliberately, and piece by piece. He changed the way he worked. He created boundaries. He allowed himself to rest, to say no, to breathe. And instead of trying to outrun his past, he began to integrate it. Understanding that pain wasn't his enemy, but his origin. He returned to training, but with a different purpose. Not to escape the darkness, but to transform it. Every rep, every drop of sweat, every early morning became a reminder. Strength is something you grow, not something you're born with. His mindset shifted from survival to intention, from proving himself to becoming himself. And slowly he emerged from the fog, not as The Rock, the character the world adored, but as Dwayne Johnson, a man rebuilt from his own fractures. The depression didn't vanish. Healing is never that simple. But he learned how to face it, manage it, speak about it. He turned vulnerability into power, a message he would later share with millions who believed strength meant silence. This was the real comeback. Not a championship win, not a box office hit, but a return to self, raw, honest, and fragile. The world would soon see a different Dwayne Johnson. Still powerful, still charismatic, still larger than life, but anchored by something far stronger than fame. Clarity, humility, and a new purpose born from surviving the shadows. This was his rebirth, and it would reshape the legacy he left behind. Life after rebirth didn't make Dwayne Johnson untouchable. It made him intentional. He rebuilt not only his mental health, but also the world around him. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't running from something. He was building toward something. He repaired relationships with time, honesty, and patience. He learned to show the parts of himself he once hid, not the unstoppable superstar, but the man who carried scars behind the smile. And that authenticity drew people in more powerfully than any movie role ever could. As Hollywood embraced him, he used his influence differently. He chose roles with heart, messages, and purpose. He showed up for his crews. He helped strangers quietly. He visited children in hospitals without cameras, sat beside veterans battling trauma, and talked openly about mental health, a subject most action stars avoid out of fear of looking weak. But Dwayne had learned something. Weakness doesn't break you. Silence does. That became the foundation of his philanthropy. He donated millions not for headlines but because he understood what it felt like to have nothing. He created programs for at-risk youth, kids like him who had been arrested, bullied, or lost. He supported families struggling with homelessness. He funded opportunities for people who needed just one chance, the way he once did. His impact grew far beyond entertainment. He became a symbol, not of invincibility, but of resilience. A reminder that strength is not measured by what you can lift, but by what you can survive. Even his entrepreneurial ventures carried the same message. Terramana, Zoa Energy, Project Rock, all of them infused with stories of discipline, self-belief, and the mindset of starting from $7 and building up brick by brick. His social media presence, the most followed man in America at one point, wasn't just branding. It was connection. He spoke openly about depression, vulnerability, fatherhood, healing, and mental health. He laughed at himself, shared failures, honored his mother, and encouraged millions not to be afraid of their battles. Dwayne Johnson became more than The Rock. He became a blueprint for turning pain into purpose, trauma into empathy, and darkness into something that could light the path for others. His legacy no longer lived in arenas or box office charts. It lived in people. In every young kid who felt lost. In every adult fighting silent wounds. In every story of someone who rose after falling because they believed, even for a moment, that if he could do it, maybe they could too. And that, more than championships, movies, or fame, became the mark he left on the world, a legacy built not from perfection, but from survival. Dwayne Johnson's life is often told as a story of strength, discipline, and impossible success. But beneath the headlines and the muscle and the charisma, the truth is quieter and far more human. He didn't rise because he was fearless. He rose because he learned to walk with fear. He learned that the hardest battles are not fought in arenas or on movie sets, but in the silent corners of the mind when no one is watching. From a boy standing outside a locked apartment door, to a young man holding $7 in a garbage bag, to an adult fighting shadows he couldn't name, every chapter carved him into who he became. Not a symbol of perfection, but a symbol of resilience. And maybe that's why his story resonates. Because it reminds us that pain doesn't disqualify you. Brokenness doesn't end you. Darkness doesn't define you. You only lose if you stop walking. You only fail if you stop believing that healing is possible. And in the end, Dwayne Johnson's life whispers a truth we all need to hear. Strength isn't what the world sees. Strength is what you survive. So take a breath. Look at the battles you've fought. Look at the wounds you've carried. And ask yourself quietly, honestly, so, what's your story?